Social media marketing. I want to talk to you today about how it should fit into your overall marketing strategy and the best way to sort of think about social media. It's a really big topic and we're not going to go down every avenue, so I'm going to cover some basics of how to think about social media and cover the top social media platforms, and more information is available on the Nest toolkit, the marketing toolkit. So first of all, let's go through the top social networks. The biggest social network in the world is Facebook with 2.23 billion monthly active users. It's one of the first places after your website that prospective customers will look. They'll have a little look at your Facebook page and see what you've been updating. Now I'm going to go into this more in the future, but one of the things I'd like to encourage you to do today is have a look at your main social pages that you use and look at it from a visitor's point of view. On Facebook especially, there's a tab, there's a button that you can view as visitor, so you're not looking at the admin page, and scroll down and have a look and think about what a new visitor might think about your page. One of my pet peeves is if it's the summer and I am interested in a business and I look at their Facebook page or their Instagram feed and I scroll back just a little bit and I start seeing Christmas stuff. I think that sends the wrong message. That doesn't look like you're very active. It doesn't look like your business is current and open, and I think it's a good idea to just have a constant stream of relevant, sort of timely updates on your feed. We'll go into that in a bit more detail later. Next, Instagram. Now Instagram is owned by Facebook. If you run ads, you'll know that the Instagram and the Facebook Ads Manager is one and the same. It's a slightly younger audience, although that's less relevant as it was before. Content needs to be more visual than Facebook. It's a photo and video sharing app. You need to tell your brand story in a visual way. 1 billion monthly active users globally for Instagram. And Instagram, it can be a little bit less polished than Facebook. Your content can be a little bit more organic, especially with stories or reels. It's a good idea to sort of let people have a little look behind the scenes about what you're doing. And again, you don't want to scroll down an Instagram feed and start seeing things from Christmas if it's the middle of summer. What you want to do is see content that is timely, relevant and fresh. Even if you're only posting once a week, it's a good idea to always post once a week. Try not to miss that out, and have a think about the type of content that you're putting on there. Again, I'll go into a bit more detail about that in a minute. Next, Twitter. News, entertainment, sport and politics is the most immediate social network with information being sent in real time. Your post would need to reflect this and be part of the current conversation with 335 million monthly active users. So what does that mean about being immediate? Twitter is often where news stories break, and the topic of the day is very much what everybody's talking about on Twitter. If you look at the trending topics on Twitter, you'll see that it's either the most relevant news or something's happened to a celebrity, or there's a big world event, everybody's talking about it, or sometimes memes can rise. Something that's quite trendy at the time can rise and fall quickly on Twitter, but not so much on some of the newer social networks. But Twitter, I personally don't think that Twitter is hugely useful for martial arts schools. I think it's maybe a good idea to have a Twitter presence where you can just sort of post the same kind of content that you're posting on Facebook, even though that is not best practice. If you were studying marketing, people would say that each platform has its own type of content and its own uses, and you shouldn't just post the same content on every platform, which is true if you have a content strategy and an end goal for every platform. Twitter, if you want to have a Twitter presence but you don't want to put a lot of effort into it, it's okay just to post the same content. You can automate that and post the same content as from Facebook. What Twitter is really good for is some of the bigger national brands can have conversations. You might have a look, if you look at the @ and replies for National Rail or Coca-Cola or some big brands, they'll have people atting them and asking them questions, often complaints, and then they have an immediate response to that, or they'll be jumping on trends and talking about those trends. That's what it's really good for, and if you can do that kind of thing, and you are a martial arts school, with a multi-location martial arts school with maybe more of a national presence, then maybe it's a good idea to think harder about your strategy for Twitter and put more effort into being on these trends. If not, either ignore the platform altogether, or it's okay, despite what some people say, to just post some content on there, just so you have a presence on there if people are looking for you. Finding LinkedIn, and I'm going to say the same thing about LinkedIn. I don't think it's hugely useful for martial arts schools, particularly smaller martial arts schools. The professionals network is key for B2B businesses, but all businesses should have a presence. It's one of the places people look when researching a company. 294 million monthly active users. So for Nest, we're a business that deals with other businesses. We're B2B. Our LinkedIn presence needs to be a bit more robust. If you're a multi-location martial arts school and you're hiring staff, then I think it's a good idea to have a LinkedIn presence, because you will be staff will be having a look at your LinkedIn. Prospective staff will be having a look at your LinkedIn before deciding to work with you. It's a good idea to sort of build that presence and have more professionals network. The content needs to be a little bit more, exclusively about business. Really, it doesn't really want to be the sort of memes and jokes and stuff that you see on Facebook and other platforms, and stories about how you've grown in business. So if you are like a franchise owner or a multi-location site, it's a good idea to work on your LinkedIn presence. But if you are a smaller business, then maybe LinkedIn isn't for you. All these things are to say, and I mentioned this in a previous webinar, it's better to do one thing really well than try and do everything and not do it that well. If you can focus on maybe Facebook and Instagram and do those things brilliantly, and follow all the tips that I'm about to go through, then maybe you don't need a presence on other platforms. Or maybe you can just automate your presence on other platforms and just be churning out the same kind of generic content that might live on other pages. The important thing is to have an end goal for these. What I'm looking for these platforms. Am I looking to build an audience? Am I looking for it to be an extension of my website? What am I looking for? So when you're thinking about these top 4 pages, top 4 social networks, there obviously are some new kids on the block and some other social networks that you might want to think about. The 2 most recent ones that we've talked about are TikTok and Clubhouse. Now, Clubhouse was an interesting one. It had a lot of buzz when it came along. It was a gated community, so you'd have to have an invite and be sort of a thought leader to get there. And the idea was that people had these audio-based, like podcast type conversations, but it was completely open. Some people could join. There was no way really for martial arts schools to grow. You couldn't get new students on there. But again, if you're a larger business or franchise owner, it might have been a good place to sort of facilitate conversations with more like-minded people. So you would be very social on there, but you wouldn't use it as part of your social strategy for student acquisition, for example. It was an iOS exclusive. By the time it came to Android, I think the hype about Clubhouse has kind of died down, and not too many people are using it anymore. But it could be a good idea just to use to sort of join in these conversations and sort of help grow your knowledge as a businessman. I'd say about things like TikTok. TikTok's a really difficult one, I think, to use for, again, student acquisition or to use effectively for local businesses. The reason is that TikTok is kind of all algorithmically based. You do follow people and you do follow certain content creators, but a lot of it is you just swipe up and you are fed the content that the platform thinks you would enjoy the most. And it will take into account the kind of topics that you linger on, it uses hashtags and some machine learning to work out what content is happening. And it will sort of try to feed you more of the same content. And that's great for brand awareness for larger national brands, but for local businesses it's more difficult to do. And also TikTok's audience, it skews younger. I don't see them responding well to advertisements on the platform, and it's very difficult, I think, to create a piece of content that fits well within TikTok unless you completely understand the platform and sort of understand the flow of it, know how to identify the trends that are trending on TikTok and do your own twist on it and sort of be funny and relevant and talk to these people in their own sort of digital language. You're going to smell inauthentic, and I think it's difficult to have that kind of presence on TikTok if you are inauthentic. A lot of that content has sort of shifted to Reels on Instagram. Instagram introduced Reels, which is their version of TikTok. A lot of the content that starts on TikTok moves over to Reels. And again, it's really, really difficult to be authentic and to identify those trends. So I wouldn't currently use it as part of your content plan unless you feel very comfortable with the platform and feel like you understand it and can create the kind of content that would appeal to the users. It's a really difficult one to crack, and if Nest figures out a way to use it for student acquisition, obviously we'll pass that information on to you. So I'm going to talk broadly about your Facebook and Instagram pages and how I think you should approach your content strategy and your social strategy. And personally, I think there are two different ways to think about things like your Facebook page and your Instagram feed. The first way is to think about it what is generally considered to be the best practice way. And a lot of Facebook and Instagram and social media marketing gurus will say this is the way you should do things, and that is to try and build a community, offer high quality content, position yourself as an expert, and focus on interactions. So what do I mean by that? If I am a health advocate, I would talk about healthy eating. I'll put out recipes. I'd say this is an exercise you can do at home. I would host live webinars. I would try and drive people to my page and show them the content that they're there for. They are following me specifically, or my company specifically, because I'm an expert and I'm offering them some really, really good stuff that is, free on the social page, and I'm building an audience that way. And then occasionally I can hit them with a paid promotion. So I can say, I'm the expert in martial arts. If you're interested in, say I want to position myself as an expert in how to talk to children, in how to sort of discipline and communicate with children in a way that they listen. So I would put a lot of information out there, showcasing that expertise, telling them how to talk to their children, using some real life case studies, telling them that common problems that parents might face. I can do that in video, infographics. I could offer live webinars for Q&As. I am the expert, and occasionally I can say, I know all this sort of stuff because I deal with children every day at my martial arts school. That's my passion. I teach martial arts. We do free lessons. Here is a link to book that free lesson. So you build a community, and those people are following you for a specific reason because you're an expert in something they're interested in. It's very difficult to do and very time consuming to do, and that is the best way to do things. But not everybody can put that time and effort into building an audience. The other way to do things is option 2, where I think you should see your Facebook page as an extension of your website, and you're focusing on showcasing what your club does and your club's atmosphere. So that's when you post things like Student of the Week, here's our new class, here's some basics of what you can expect if you come to the first lesson, here's something funny that happened in the dojo today. If you've just set everything up for a new class and everything's looking really neat and tidy in your dojo, you can take a picture and say, can't wait for classes to start. New people coming in with their permission, obviously, you can say, we've got 5 new people in the class tonight. I hope they do well. This guy came to me afterwards and said how much his child enjoyed it. Testimonials from parents, things like that. So people would come to your Facebook page if they're interested in your business, scroll down, get a flavour of what you do, maybe not follow you, you're maybe not building an audience, but it's part of that customer journey where they look at what you've been doing and say, yeah, I like this, I like the vibe that they're putting out there, I can see that their dojo is clean, I can see this person is an expert, I can see that children enjoy it, I can see it's the right kind of place for me, and they'll go along. So those are the 2 kind of options of how to think about your social strategy. And the same thing is true on Instagram. If you're trying to build an audience, you can do videos, reels, photos with tips, tricks, advice, with hoping people follow you. And then you can either hit them organically with sales messages or use the audience that you've built to create a paid audience and send them adverts with promotional messages. Or you can just showcase what you're doing in your club and hope that when people are researching you, they look at your socials as part of that customer journey and reinforce that using you is a good thing to do. The next point I would make is a lot of people focus exclusively on their own page or their own group. And we at Nesta are as guilty of that as anybody. But social media is supposed to be social. And lots of people say that, but I don't think many people really think about the implications of that. So what I would advise is join some local groups, participate in discussions, try and form connections, offer a unique perspective, and follow hashtags and comment on those. So what do I mean by that? There's going to be local groups in your area, sometimes just hyper-local news bulletin sort of groups, where it's saying, there's one called Mapley People, where I live. It's just talking about shops and local things that are happening and any events that are on. And there are some more broadly Nottingham-based ones. You can join those and participate in conversations. have and think about your own private profile on Facebook or Instagram and think, is this a place where I am going to do business? Is this a place where I want to position myself as the martial arts guy, the expert, talking about my club? That's the content I put out there. Is this a personal page for my friends? Because if you're on a group and somebody asks a question about things to do in the area, and I say, oh, we have a martial arts school, and then I click on your name and I see that maybe you've posted something that doesn't align with my political beliefs or something that I think is a bit risque on your personal page, I might think maybe I don't want to send my kids to this school. But if I click on your personal page and it's all about martial arts and it's sort of an extension of your group or your page, then I'm thinking, well, this guy's the martial arts guy. He knows what he's talking about. Maybe I consider it. And it's important to be active in those discussions, because then it's another way to build an audience. So you're reaching people outside of those that would find your page organically or follow you because a friend follows you. You're actively participating in conversations on these groups, helping out when you can, and occasionally peppering in a promotional message if it's appropriate to the conversation. Again, you can do that on Instagram if there are hashtags, hashtag karate, hashtag martial arts, hashtag Nottingham. I can have a look at those hashtags. If I see a post that I think is relevant and I can add to the discussion, I can comment on that post and just say, really like what you've done here, or if you want to know more, come to my dojo, this is the address, or just try and participate in any active conversations, and that will help grow your audience for your own page, for your own groups, and then you can start sending promotional messages that way. Now you can download some information about a content plan from the Nest toolkit, the Nest Marketing Toolkit, and this is a screen grab of that content plan, and this is a little bit, I would say, over comprehensive, but this gives you an idea about what best practice could look like if you were, say, a larger organisation and you had a marketing person or someone that you delegate marketing to within your team. This could be a tool that they would use to put a content plan together. And we suggest making a content plan because it's a good idea to have a variety of different types of posts and to be consistent with those types of posts. So we tend to say you should divide your content categories into 4 different types: inspire, educate, entertain, and convince. So when you are putting a post together, have a think about which one of those 4 categories it fulfills. So for example, an inspirational quote or motivational quote would be something inspiring. If you are showing a basic technique that you teach in your school, that's educational. If you're sharing a funny meme or a link to a humorous article, that's entertaining. And finally, convincing is where you send a promotional message. And you shouldn't send promotional messages where you're saying, here's a free trial class, more than 20% of the time. Even 20% might be pushing it. Most of your content should be inspiring, educational, or entertaining. And that's because you're hoping to build a bit of an audience and interact with people and sort of showcase your school in the best possible light. And when people, like I said earlier, if they are considering using you as a school, they can scroll down your page, have a look at the kind of things you do. And they don't want to see free trial lesson, free trial lesson, free trial lesson. They want to see testimonial, student of the week, funny joke. This is what we do in class. Here's a video of a technique you might learn on your first week. Things like that. So this content plan sets it out into 3 posts a day, all week. And like I say, it is quite content heavy. If you can't do 3 posts a week, 3 posts a day, maybe you want to do just 1 post a day. But decide, Monday, I'm going to send an inspirational quote. On Tuesday, I'm going to share an article. On Wednesday, I'm going to do a testimonial. And stick to that every week. And that can be the background rumble of your social networks, where they're going out every week. There are tools where you could schedule this in for the entire month. And then if anything happens, you can be more reactive. If something funny happens in class, or you get a great review or testimonial, or you want to say we're closed on Tuesdays or anything like that, you can post additional content, but the background content is always sort of going on, so you're always having this consistent idea. This is a download that you can get from the Nest Toolkit, so you can download that and have a look and sort of plan in your own content. This is some Facebook examples of some content that you can do to sort of give you an idea of what this needs to look like. So an inspiring quote, a question to interact with your audience, inspirational quote with an image, a video that's from somebody else's Facebook feed or website. You don't have to have exclusively original content. You can find content that's related to martial arts and share that out there. You can share blogs from Getting to Martial Arts, for example, or you can record some original videos that you post a few times a week. And I think that's really important. The idea of testimonial videos from a student or a parent is really, really powerful, and you should definitely include those in your content plan. And videos of you teaching a class or talking to the camera about a subject help show that you're an expert, help show people what they'll be learning in your class, and it's valuable for somebody who's considering coming to you to see that type of content. So that is social media marketing. This is how we tend to think of it at Nest. These resources are available on the Nest Toolkit to download. And the number one thing I would say from a takeaway from this presentation is have a look at your own social networks, try and see them with a fresh eye, and think, if I was a prospective student, what would be my takeaways and what would I think about my class if I was just looking at this page? And have a think about what you want your social media strategy to be. Do you want to position yourself as a thought leader, an expert, and spend a lot of time building an audience by creating completely unique, really interesting content? Or do you want to showcase your brand in the best way possible by just putting content on there as sort of an extension of your website? Have a think about which one of those you want to be, draft out a plan, and try and stick with that plan.